A poor girl spilled coffee on the mafia boss and woke up the next day in a secret castle. The morning started like any other: burning coffee, overcooked pastries, and the bitter smell of disinfectant trying to mask what was unmaskable in a place like that. Valente, table 3. I grabbed the tray with a tired sigh, pushing a strand of hair behind my ear with my wrist. The morning shift was hell, and my sneakers had soaked through from the rain outside. Again. Still, it beat being back at the group home. At least here, people left me alone, until he walked in. I didn't see him at first, just felt it. That pressure, a shift in the air, the kind that makes your spine stiffen before your mind catches up. He wasn't irregular. His suit looked like it cost more than I'd earn in a year. Perfectly tailored, black, immaculate. He sat in the darkest corner booth, away from the windows, but the light still seemed to find him, casting his cheekbones in sharp relief and reflecting off his thick black hair. His eyes were hidden behind sunglasses despite the gray skies. "Go serve him," my manager muttered, nudging me forward. "And try not to piss him off." Not the most encouraging words, but I walked over, not thinking twice. He didn't speak when I arrived, only nodded once. I set down the coffee, fresh, steaming, and that's when it happened. The tray slipped. Maybe it was his presence. Maybe it was the way he tilted his head like he knew me. Maybe it was those eyes. I hadn't even seen them yet, but I felt them. The cup tilted, and before I could stop it, scalding liquid cascaded across his chest. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Napkins. I scrambled for napkins. His suit was ruined. My hands trembled as I tried to blot the stain, but his hand caught mine mid-motion. Big, warm, firm. He held it gently, turning my palm over with surprising care. His gaze dropped to my hand, to the thin, pale scar that ran diagonally across the back of it. A scar I barely noticed anymore, but he stared at it like it was a ghost. His expression shifted. No, fractured. Something primal cracked through his polished surface. Those sunglasses came off, and when his eyes met mine, my lungs forgot how to work. Blue, deep, stormy blue, and not unfamiliar. Like something half-remembered from a dream. He didn't say a word. He just stood up abruptly, brushing past me, out the door, vanishing into the fogged-up morning like he'd never been there. I stood frozen, heart racing, napkins crushed in my fist. I'd seen men like him on the news, whispers of power, sharp suits, and shadows thick with secrets. He was one of those men, and yet, there was something else. Something I couldn't explain. "Valente," my manager snapped. "Get back to work." I nodded, numb. My hand tingled where he'd touched it, like electricity had been transferred between us, then ripped away too fast. As the hours passed, I tried to shake the encounter, but something wouldn't settle. Not the way he looked at me, not the way he touched that scar, like it meant something. By the time my shift ended, I was more exhausted than usual, the kind of tired that sinks into your bones. I tugged my hoodie up against the drizzle and stepped out onto the street, and froze. He was there, across the road, leaning against a black car, half hidden in the mist. No sunglasses now, just watching me. I blinked. He didn't move. The moment stretched, silent, taut, electric. Then a car passed, breaking my line of sight. When it was gone, so was he. Goosebumps crawled down my spine. I didn't know his name. Didn't know who he was. Didn't know why my heart was beating like a war drum in my chest. But I had the feeling that whatever had just started wouldn't be ending anytime soon. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. It's because of you that these stories keep traveling, crossing oceans, borders, and hearts. Tell me in the comments where in the world you're listening from. I love knowing where this story found you.
I should have walked away. The second I saw her, I should have turned around, buried the memory, buried her, and vanished like I always do. But I didn't, because I couldn't. She didn't recognize me. Of course she did. How could she? We were children, and the last time I saw her, she was bleeding and crying in my arms, her small fingers clenched around mine like I was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. Now she was grown, beautiful in a way that made the world pause. Still calm, still quiet, but sharper, more aware, unknowingly dangerous. And I was already drowning. I waited hours outside that rundown cafe, leaning against the car, the rain soft against my shoulders, one hand in my pocket, the other gripping a cigarette I never lit, watching, wanting, hating myself more with every passing second. Then he came. Tall, clean-cut, casual confidence. He kissed her cheek like he had the right, placed a hand on her lower back like she belonged to him. I didn't remember deciding to follow them. The car trailed at a safe distance, quiet engine, tinted windows. I told my driver nothing. He knew better than to ask. They stopped in a narrow side street, some shortcut. He laughed at something she said. She smiled, that soft curve of her lips like the first sunrise after war, and I snapped. I opened the door and stepped into the alley. The sound of my shoes on the wet pavement was the only warning. "Serena," I said. She turned. Her eyes widened. He stepped in front of her. Brave, foolish, irrelevant. I hit him once. A single, calculated blow to the temple. His body crumpled to the ground with a wet thud. Serena screamed. "What did you do?" she cried, falling to her knees beside him. "He's not dead," I said, already pulling a cloth from my coat pocket. She looked up just as I reached her. No, wait, please." I pressed the cloth to her face. She fought. Of course she did. Arms flailing, knees trying to land a blow. But I held her gently, firmly, as her movements slowed. Her eyes locked with mine, terrified, confused, and then, nothing. Silence. I caught her before she hit the ground, and for a moment, I didn't move. I stood there in that filthy alley, holding her body against mine. Her face nestled into my shoulder, her breath shallow against mine. She was warm, fragile, still. My arms tightened around her. She smelled like she used to. That same faint vanilla and something floral, lavender. Time had aged it, matured it, but I would have known it anywhere. My eyes dropped to her lips, full, slightly parted, soft. I should have looked away. I should have been ashamed, but I stared, drank her in like a man who'd been lost in a desert for too long. My hand brushed the back of her head, fingers tangling gently. She murmured something in her sleep, barely a sound. It vibrated against my chest like a confession. God, forgive me. I clenched my jaw, turned, and carried her to the car. The door opened without a word. My driver met my eyes in the rearview mirror but said nothing. He knew better than to speak when I was like this. I laid Serena down across the seat, careful to rest her head on the pillow I'd brought. My jacket slipped off my shoulders. I draped it over her to keep her warm. She didn't stir. I sat beside her, knees bent, elbows on thighs, staring at the fine line of her scar beneath the soft glow of the interior light. My hands ached to touch her again. Instead, I closed them into fists. I had her now. After all these years, after all the ghosts and blood and pain, but I hadn't earned her. Not yet.
The first thing I felt was silk, cool against my skin, smooth as water. The second was light, warm, golden light filtering through lace curtains I didn't recognize. And then, pain. Not sharp, more like a pressure behind my eyes, a heaviness in my limbs, as if I'd slept for too long in a place I wasn't meant to. My heart started racing before my brain caught up. Where am I? I bolted upright. The bed was enormous, carved from dark wood, draped in fabrics that looked like they belonged in a royal museum. The sheets beneath me were gold-stitched. The room glowed with soft amber from a chandelier above, every detail gleaming. Ornate mirrors, velvet curtains, a gilded wardrobe. It wasn't a room, it was a cage made of beauty. I scrambled out of the bed, bare feet hitting the polished floor. I was still wearing my work clothes, my hoodie, my jeans, my sneakers. They felt so violently out of place in this palace of a room it made me nauseous. I ran to the door. Locked. Of course it was locked. Panic clawed at my throat. My fingers trembled as I pounded on the wood. "Hello?" I shouted. "Let me out!" No answer. I turned, heart thudding. The windows were tall, covered, but when I pulled back the heavy curtains, I found not a city skyline, not even a street, just fog and forest, endless dark trees swallowing everything. My knees buckled slightly. I pressed my palm to the cold glass and whispered, "What the hell is this?" The memory slammed into me like a punch to the chest. The Biko, the man, the blow, the cloth, the scent, my body going limp. Him, Dante, I breathed, and as if summoned by my voice, the door unlocked with a heavy metallic click. I turned sharply. He stood there in the doorway. Same black suit, no tie, collar open. His hair a little messier now, his eyes more dangerous. No sunglasses this time. I stared at him like he was a storm I hadn't seen coming. "You—" My voice broke. "Where am I? What did you do to me?" He stepped inside slowly, closing the door behind him. "You're safe." "Safe?" I laughed, short, hysterical. "You drugged me. You kidnapped me. I watched you drop my boyfriend like he was nothing, and then, he's not dead." I froze. "What?" "He's alive. Unconscious, but alive." His voice was low, flat. I made sure of it. I searched his face, but there was no remorse, no guilt, just calm, terrifying control. "Why am I here?" I whispered. He didn't answer, just looked at me, the kind of look that made my skin crawl and heat all at once, as if he were measuring me, memorizing me. "I deserve an answer," I snapped, backing toward the wall. You don't just steal people and lock them in castles? It's not a castle, he said, as if that mattered. I pointed at the chandelier, the marble floor, the gold-threaded curtains. Could have fooled me. A pause. Then he took another step closer. I felt the shift in the air again, that pressure, like gravity pulling just a little harder when he was near. You're here because you were never supposed to disappear, he said softly, and I'm not letting you vanish again. I stared at him. What are you talking about? He didn't explain. He didn't move. He just looked at me with those same eyes I'd seen in the cafe. Blue, deep, heavy with something I couldn't name yet. I felt something twist in my chest. I didn't want to understand him. I didn't want to see softness where I should have seen evil. But there was something. He turned to leave. Wait, I called after him. At least tell me your name. He stopped at the door, looked over his shoulder, and said only one word, Dante. Then he was gone, and I was alone again, in a golden room that shimmered like a dream but held me like a prison.
I hadn't stepped into that room to scare her. I just needed to see her. After all these years of watching shadows, chasing ghosts, bleeding for a world that never gave a damn about me, there she was, in my world, real, breathing, awake, and terrified. I stood in the hallway outside her door for minutes after I left, maybe longer. My heartbeat had never returned to normal. My blood still felt like fire. Her voice, that crack of confusion and anger, "Why am I here?" echoed louder than any gunshot I'd ever heard. She didn't remember, but I did. She was 6 when I met her. I was 10, already dressed in black suits and taught how to kill with silence. She was all scraped knees, wild curls, and bright eyes that didn't belong in our fathers were allies then, business partners, murderers with manners. One day, while they talked in the garden, she tripped running through the fountain paths. Her palm hit broken glass. There was blood. She screamed. The men didn't move, but I did. I remember kneeling beside her, hands shaking as I wrapped her small fingers in a linen handkerchief. She looked at me like I was her whole universe in that moment. I didn't speak, just held her hand until she stopped crying. And then, days later, my father shot hers in the head. I watched it happen. He made me stand there. Look him in the eyes, boy. That's what men do before they take what's theirs. So I did. I looked into the eyes of the man whose daughter trusted me and watched him die. My fists clenched as I stood in front of the stone wall across from Serena's door. I breathed in through my nose, out, in, but the image wouldn't leave. Her, tiny, bleeding, him, collapsing, and now, her again, grown and cornered, trapped in a gilded cage I built. I told myself I was protecting, that the world wouldn't give her a second chance, not after everything, that I'd kept her safe. But the truth tasted like acid. I brought her here because I couldn't let her go. I was no better than my father. Fuck. I slammed my fist into the wall. The sound echoed down the hallway like thunder. Stone scraped skin. Blood followed. Again. 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 Pain grounded me. The sharp throb in my knuckles was the only thing I could feel that wasn't her. I leaned my forehead against the cold marble, breathing hard, blood dripping onto the floor below. She hated me. Of course she did. She thought I killed him, her boyfriend, that I drugged her, stole her, caged her. All true, except the part that mattered. I'd never harm her, not her. But she didn't know that, and maybe she never would. I cleaned the blood from my hands in silence, didn't bandage it, let it sting. A reminder. I walked past her room again, paused. No sound inside. I wanted to open that door, to go to her, to fall at her feet and explain everything, to beg. But I also wanted to touch her, taste her, bury myself so deep inside her she'd forget every man who ever touched her and remember only me. That made me worse than guilty. It made me dangerous. So I kept walking. Not because I was strong, but because I knew. If I stayed near her tonight, I wouldn't stop myself. And if I broke her, even a little, there'd be nothing left of me.
The door was unlocked the next morning. No guards, no Dante. Just silence and sunlight streaming through the windows of the golden room. I didn't waste time. My sneakers were still damp from the night before, but I shoved them on and moved quickly down the corridor. Everything was too quiet. No music, no voices. Just the soft creak of floorboards and the ticking of some antique clock echoing somewhere above. My heart beat louder than my steps. The hallway opened into a grand landing, a split staircase with iron railings and a chandelier that looked like it belonged in a cathedral. Paintings of grim men and severe women lined the walls, their eyes following me like silent judges. I picked a direction and ran, door after door, locked, locked, locked. A right turn, then another. Then, a glimpse of light ahead. I moved faster. My hand touched a glass door leading out to what looked like a courtyard. Trees, open air, the world. But as I reached for the handle, Miss Valente, I stopped cold. A man stood at the end of the corridor, black suit, earpiece, eyes trained on me like a hawk sizing up prey. My pulse spiked. I just want to leave. He took a step forward. I can't let you do that. Is this a prison or a palace? I hissed. He didn't answer. I'll scream. He raised an eyebrow calmly. No one here will stop me from carrying you back to your room. There was no malice in his tone, just certainty. I stepped back slowly, fingers curling into fists. Then something shifted. His gaze dropped, down my body, lingering. It was subtle, almost nothing, but I noticed. And I wasn't the only one, because from the hallway behind him, heavy footsteps thundered in. Then silence fell like a blade. The guard stiffened. I turned, and there he was, Dante. His black shirt was rolled at the sleeves, exposing forearms streaked with drying blood. His eyes, those storm-dark eyes, locked instantly on the guard. And what I saw in them made me step back instinctively. He didn't yell. He didn't make a scene. He just walked, slowly, deliberately, like a predator in a silent hunt. The guard backed away without a word, head bowed. Dante passed him without even glancing again. He was looking only at me now, and something about that look made it hard to breathe. Is this how you plan to keep me here? I asked, voice shaking. Threats and guards and locked doors? He didn't respond. I pushed forward. You can't just cage people, Dante. You don't own me. His jaw tightened. His eyes flicked briefly to where the guard had stood, then back to me. And I realized it wasn't the fact that I tried to escape that made him this tense. It was the fact that the man looked at me, that someone else's eyes had lingered where only his were allowed. That was the real sin. You're not a prisoner, he said, voice low. Could have fooled me. You're protected. I laughed. From what? The world? Or you? He took one more step closer, and the heat of him hit me like a wave. You don't understand what kind of men would come for you if they knew you were alive. I'd rather face them than rot in this palace of shadows. His eyes darkened, but he said nothing. He turned slowly and walked past me. As he did, he leaned in close, his voice barely a whisper. They won't look at you again. Then he was gone. And I stood there, heart racing, skin prickling, more afraid of what he hadn't said than what he had.
I didn't sleep, couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her standing in the corridor, staring down that guard like a flame refusing to be snuffed out. And worse, his eyes on her, that flicker, that he hadn't touched her, but he'd wanted to, and that was enough. I should have killed him. Instead, I just walked away, let the threat hang like a blade in the air, unseen but felt. He wouldn't make that mistake again. None of them would, not if they wanted to keep breathing. The door to her room opened under my hand like it was waiting for me. She was awake, sitting by the window, knees pulled to her chest, hoodie sleeves draped over her hands. She didn't look surprised to see me. Her eyes found mine immediately, those pale blue irises reflecting. You really don't believe in knocking, do you? She asked softly. I believe in doors that don't keep you. She let out a breath, half a scoff, half a sigh. What do you want? I crossed the room slowly, letting the silence settle between us. The night outside the window was full of mist. The light in the room flickered low. Her features glowed gold in it. I stopped a few feet away. She didn't move. I reached out slowly, letting my fingers brush hers. She pulled back. I caught her wrist. Not hard, just enough to still her. She stared at me, defiant, so I turned her hand gently, exposed her palm, then the top of it, the scar. My thumb traced the line. She shivered. You still have it, I murmured. Of course I do, she said. You think people just forget the things that leave marks? Her voice was sharp, but her hand didn't pull away again. I looked up at her. She didn't flinch. God, she was beautiful. Not in the way women tried to be, but in a way that demanded to be looked at. Calm, poised, unshakable. And yet I knew, under all that stillness, there was fire. She tilted her chin up slightly. You keep touching me like I'm yours. My jaw tensed. You are. No, she snapped. I'm not. You took me. You silenced me. I saved you. From what? She spat. My own life? From being lost, I growled, stepping closer. From disappearing again. And who saved you, Dante? The question hit like a slap. I didn't answer. I leaned in, close enough to breathe her in, and whispered, no one. Her eyes flickered, and then I kissed her. Not gently, not carefully. I kissed her like I'd been waiting a lifetime, like her mouth was the only truth left in a world made of lies. She gasped against me, hands against my chest. At first, she tried to shove me back, but I didn't move. She stopped, her fingers curled into my shirt. For a heartbeat, we were both lost. Then she tore herself away and slapped me, hard. I let it land. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. Her lips were red, her eyes stormy. Don't ever, she started, but her voice broke. I told you, I said softly. You were never supposed to disappear. And then I turned and walked out. Because if I stayed another second, I wouldn't have stopped at a kiss.
I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt his mouth on mine again. Too rough, too desperate, too real. I could still taste him, still feel the heat of his hand on my skin. And the worst part? I hadn't hated it. I'd wanted to. God, I'd wanted to shove him back, scream, claw at him. But there was a moment, brief, traitorous, where I had kissed him back, just for a second, just enough to hate myself for it. I sat on the bed in the golden room, knees hugged to my chest, my pulse still a frantic drumbeat in my throat. What the hell is happening to me? He was the man who stole me, locked me up, threatened my life, and yet, the way he said you were never supposed to disappear had cracked something deep inside me. Like a door I didn't know existed had just been kicked open. The scar on my hand throbbed. I ran my thumb over it absently. I hadn't thought about how I got it in years. Just a childhood injury, they told me. Something with glass. But now, flashes. A boy, kneeling in front of me, wrapping a cloth around my bleeding hand, dark hair, blue eyes, silent, gentle. I shook my head as if I could erase the image by force. That couldn't be him. That couldn't be Dante. Could it? Hours passed. Or maybe minutes. Time didn't move the same here. I ventured out of the room again, quietly this time. I didn't want another confrontation, just clarity. The corridors were emptier now, fewer guards. No sign of Dante. I followed the faint scent of something sweet, lavender and lemon, and found myself near what looked like a service hallway. A woman in a gray uniform walked by, carrying a silver tray. She paused when she saw me. I lifted my chin. What's your name? She hesitated. Marta. Where am I, Marta? Her eyes darted around, and she lowered her voice. The Caruso estate. The name hit me like a fist. Caruso. I knew that name. I didn't know how, but I did. It echoed somewhere deep in my bones. I swallowed. Is that his name? Yes, miss. Signor Dante Caruso. I backed up a step. Everything tilted. Memories I hadn't touched since I was 6 came rushing back in broken pieces. Shouting, footsteps, blood on marble floors, a man falling, and a boy, 10 years old, frozen, watching. I didn't remember the faces, but I remembered the name. I remembered that it was the Carusos who never came for me, never looked for me after my father died, never claimed me again. I stared at Marta, but she was already hurrying away. My head spun. What was this? Some twisted reunion? Did he know who I was all along? Is that why he took me? Did I belong to him? Or to his past? Back in the room, I stared at the chandelier above me. The light flickered, and somewhere, under all the confusion and fear, one truth began to bloom like poison. There was a reason I'd recognized his eyes in the cafe. Because I'd seen them before. On a boy who once held my hand, right before the world fell apart.
I wanted to see her in something that wasn't soaked in fear, so I had the dress laid out. Simple, elegant, dark green to match the cool tone of her eyes. Nothing vulgar, nothing showy. Just something that would make every man at the table aware that she didn't belong to any of them, only to me. The dining hall hadn't hosted more than ghosts in years, but tonight, I allowed a few vultures to sit at my table. Francesca was one of them. She arrived fashionably late, always had a flair for drama, tight red silk, lips to match. She greeted me like she still had a right to. I let her kiss my cheek, but my eyes were on the door. When Serena walked in, the room stilled. She wore the dress. Her hair was pulled back, loose strands framing her face. She didn't wear makeup, didn't need it. Her steps were hesitant, her spine straight, defiant even here, even after everything. She took the seat I'd left for her at my right. No one spoke. Not until Francesca broke the silence with a blade. Well, she purred, swirling her wine. You've been busy. I didn't answer. Her gaze slid to Serena. We weren't introduced. Serena looked at her, calm as glass. I wasn't aware this was a party. Francesca smiled, all teeth. Oh, darling, everything's a party, if you know how to play. I reached out and took Serena's hand. She flinched, barely, but didn't pull away. Francesca's smile cracked. She's not a guest, Francesca said lightly. Is she, Dante? No, I said, looking only at Serena. She's something else entirely. The words hung between us, heavier than the wine, thicker than the silence that followed. Francesca set her glass down. Too hard. Careful, Caro. Hearts are fragile, especially when I turned my head slowly, met her gaze with mine. Then maybe you should have protected yours better. Francesca's lips parted like she might respond, but instead, she laughed. Cold, elegant, dead inside. Well then, she said, rising. Thank you for the wine. And the warning. She left without looking back. The others soon followed. The room emptied until it was just the two of us. Serena pulled her hand from mine at last. "You do realize," she said softly, "that you just claimed me in front of a table full of criminals. They needed to know." She stood, slow and deliberate. "You don't own me." I rose too. "No." Then I stepped closer. "But I will protect you. From every single one of them. Including her." Her chin lifted, stubborn and steady. "What makes you think I'm not the one they should be protected from?" My lips curved. God, I wanted to kiss her again, but I didn't. I let her walk away. Because tonight, her strength was the most dangerous thing in the room.
I didn't belong at that table. Not in that dress. Not in that chair beside him. Not under the eyes of those people. His people. Not with the weight of his hand claiming mine like I was a prize he'd won. Like I was some treasure plucked from a vault and polished to shine in front of strangers. I should have felt powerful. Instead, I felt owned. And the woman in red, Francesca, she saw it. Saw right through me. Every word from her mouth had been a dagger dipped in honey, aimed straight at the part of me still trying to hold on to who I used to be. But I held it together, at least until the room was empty. Now I was walking, wandering aimlessly through the endless maze of Dante Caruso's kingdom. My heels clicked softly on the stone floor, echoing down corridors lit by flickering sconces. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to move, to breathe, to escape, if only for a few stolen moments. Couldn't sleep? His voice came from the shadows ahead. I stopped. My pulse spiked instantly. Dante stepped into the light. No jacket this time, sleeves rolled, collar open, hair slightly tousled. He looked less like a captor and more like a man who hadn't stopped thinking about me for hours. I hated that it made my stomach flip. "I wasn't tired," I said, walking past him. He followed. "You were angry. Congratulations. You're perceptive." I kept my pace steady, refusing to look at him. "You didn't like the dinner. You paraded me like a possession. I protected you. From what? A woman in a red dress?" He stopped walking. I didn't. "Serena," he called after me. I froze. Something in his voice, low, tense, rooted me in place. I turned slowly. He stood there, watching me like I was slipping through his fingers again. "You don't get to do this," I said. "You don't get to steal me, touch me, kiss me, and then act like you're the one bleeding." His eyes darkened. "You think I'm not?" I walked back to him, closing the distance fast. "I think you live for the bleeding." And then I shoved him, hard. He barely moved, but something cracked in his expression. "Tell me the truth," I whispered. "Why am I here?" He reached out slowly, carefully, as if afraid I might break, and touched my cheek. "I couldn't lose you again." My breath hitched, and then we kissed. This kiss wasn't like the first. It wasn't a warning or a storm. It was fire. I pushed against him, not to stop him, but to feel how solid he was, how present. His hand slid into my hair, pulling me closer, and I let him. Let myself burn. Let myself want. His mouth devoured mine. Our bodies collided like they were remembering something we hadn't lived yet. I should have pulled away, but I didn't. I kissed him back like I needed to forget everything else, who he was, what he'd done, where we were. I let myself fall for one reckless moment, and then I stepped back, breathing hard, shaking. He stood there, chest rising fast, eyes unreadable. "Don't," I said, voice trembling. "Don't make me feel like this. I don't know what's real with you. I'm real. That's what scares me." And I turned, leaving him in the corridor with his hands still half raised, like he didn't know whether to pull me back or let me go.
She left me standing there like I was the one who couldn't be trusted with the truth. Maybe she was right, but I wasn't done. Not with her. Not tonight. The castle was silent when I walked the corridor toward her room. The guards had retreated. The lights were low. Every step I took felt like a question. Would she hate me more? Would she let me stay? Would she run? I didn't care. I needed her too much to stop now. I didn't knock. I opened the door and stepped into the gold-lit room. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, back straight, arms crossed like she'd been waiting, our eyes locked. She didn't tell me to leave. She didn't move. I closed the door behind me. "You shouldn't be here," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "I know." "Then why are you?" I stepped forward. "Because I can't not be." She didn't flinch. She didn't scream or cry or beg. She just looked at me, like she was tired of fighting with herself. "I don't want you," she said. I came closer. "But you do." Her breath caught. "I want to hate you," she whispered. I reached her, stood before her, let my fingers brush her jaw. "I know. I don't forgive you. I wouldn't forgive me either." She looked up at me, so calm, so impossibly composed, and something inside me finally snapped. I leaned down and kissed her, not like before. This wasn't possession or punishment. This was surrender. She kissed me back. Her hands found my shoulders, pulled me closer. I lifted her from the bed, held her against me like she was something I'd never deserved but couldn't live without. Our mouths moved with growing hunger. The tension that had haunted every second between us finally broke loose. Fast, hot, desperate. I carried her to the bed, laid her down gently. My jacket fell, then my shirt, then hers. I watched her skin appear beneath my hand, slow and reverent. She watched me like she wanted to memorize every line, every scar. Her fingers touched the bloodied bandage still wrapped around my knuckles. "You're hurt," she murmured. "I don't feel it." "Why?" "Because you're here." Her lips parted, but no words came. She pulled me down. We moved like fire and silence. Her legs wrapped around me, my hands on her thighs, her waist, her ribs. Every part of her responded like she'd been waiting just as long as I had. I kissed the scar on her hand. She moaned into my neck. She didn't say she forgave. I didn't ask her to. This wasn't forgiveness. It was need. Pure, violent, aching need, and we gave into it completely. After, I didn't move. I stayed propped on my side, watching her. She lay on her back, chest rising and falling, skin flushed, eyes half closed but still guarded. I didn't touch her again. Didn't dare. Because I knew, whatever we'd just done, however perfect it felt, it didn't fix anything. It only deepened the bond neither of us knew how to escape, and maybe neither of us really wanted to.
I woke up in gold, warm skin against mine, muscles tense even in sleep, his breath soft at the base of my neck. For a moment, I didn't think. I just existed. But then, memory rushed in. The kiss, the fire, the way I'd let him touch every part of me, mind, body, soul. I slipped from the bed before he woke, because I wasn't ready for the morning after. The castle was quieter than usual, almost abandoned. No guards in the hall, no Marta, just silence. Maybe I should have stayed in the room, but I couldn't. I needed air, distance, clarity. Instead, I found shadows. A young man, one of the staff I'd never seen before, emerged from a narrow hallway and nodded silently for me to follow. I hesitated, but something in his expression, it wasn't threatening. It was heavy, like he carried a truth too dark for daylight. I followed him. He led me down an unused corridor, dust in the corners, faded portraits on the walls. We stopped at a door made of old oak, half rotted at the bottom. He knocked once, then vanished. I stood there, heart pounding. Then the door opened, and I met the man who destroyed my life. He was older now, thinner, hair gray at the temples, but eyes sharp as razors. He sat in a high-backed chair beside a fire that seemed too small for the cold in the room. "Come in, Serena," he said, as if we were old friends. I didn't move. "You know who I am?" I nodded once. "You're his father." He smiled faintly. "Among other things." "Why am I here?" I asked. "Because you need the truth." He gestured to the seat across from him. "Sit." I didn't. He didn't care. "You were 6 the last time I saw you," he said. "You had your father's eyes." Not that it helped him. Something in me iced over. He saw it. "Oh yes," he murmured. "You've suspected, haven't you, that your father didn't die in some business accident, that it wasn't just the cost of war." I clenched my fists. "You killed him." "Yes." The word dropped like lead. "You shot him." "In front of your son." He met my eyes without blinking, and Dante watched. "No," I whispered. "He looked your father in the eyes, just as I told him to, watched the blood leave his body, and said nothing." My knees buckled. I gripped the frame of the chair, but I didn't sit. "I don't believe you," I said, even though I already did. He shrugged. "Believe what you want, but know this. Whatever Dante pretends to be with you, he comes from me. And eventually, we all become our fathers." He stood slowly, walked toward me. "Your lover is not your savior," he said. "He is a Caruso. He is mine. And you are nothing but the weakness I thought I buried 20 years ago." I slapped him. The sound echoed. He didn't even flinch, just smiled. Then he opened the door. "You should leave before he ruins you completely." I don't remember walking back to the room, don't remember opening the door, or how my legs carried me. Only that when Dante appeared in the doorway minutes later, I was already crying. He froze. "What happened?" he asked. I looked at him, really looked at him. The eyes, the hands, the silence. "You watched him die," I said. He closed his eyes. "I was 10. You watched." He nodded once, and I shattered.
She looked at me like I was a monster. Not the kind you fear, the kind you regret loving, and maybe that was worse. I didn't follow her when she turned away, when her shoulders curled in like the weight of what I'd done finally broke her spine. I didn't beg, didn't try to stop her. What could I say? Yes, I was there. Yes, I saw your father die. Yes, I did nothing, because I was 10, because I was afraid. Because the man who pulled the trigger was the one who made me kneel every night and swear I would never be weak. I found myself in the West Wing, alone, a place no one followed me anymore. The room was cold, an old library, barely lit by the dying fire in the hearth. I didn't bother turning on the lights. I walked to the mirror above the fireplace and stared at the man in the reflection. My knuckles still bore the scars from the wall I'd punched days ago. Now they'd get new ones. I slammed my fist into the mirror. Glass shattered, spraying across the floor, embedding in my skin. The sound barely registered. Again, the bookshelves, the desk, the armchair. Anything I could reach, I destroyed. It wasn't enough. Not for what I'd done. Not for what I hadn't done. I should have stopped him. I should have screamed. I should have stepped between them, taken the bullet if I had to. But I just stood there, frozen, watching. I remembered the way her father looked at me in that final second. Not with fear, but with understanding. As if he knew I would carry that silence forever. The blood ran down my arm now. My chest heaved. My shirt clung to me with sweat and guilt. I dropped to my knees in the mess I made, surrounded by broken glass, broken furniture, broken everything. The room pulsed around me like a wound. She would leave. She should leave. I had taken her from the world to protect her. But the truth was, I brought her here because I couldn't stand the thought of her not being in mine. And now? Now she'd look at me and see the boy who stood beside her father's murderer and didn't say a word. The boy who became the man I never wanted to be. I buried my face in my bloody hand. There was nothing left to break, except me.
I couldn't breathe in that castle anymore. Not with the gold walls watching, not with the scent of him still on my skin, not with the weight of truth sitting like lead in my chest. He watched my father die, and then he took me, touched me, knowing what he carried in his silence. There was no safety here, not even in the places that once felt like shelter, so I made a decision. I would leave. It was after midnight when the knock came, soft, 2 taps. I didn't move at first, just stared at the door from where I sat curled up on the floor. I hadn't changed. My dress from the night before was still crumpled at the foot of the bed. My eyes burned from crying. Another knock, then a voice. Serena. It's Stefano. I stood, slow, cautious. Opened the door only an inch. He stood alone in the hallway, hands raised in peace. I heard what happened, he said. I want to help you, but we don't have much time. I stared at him. I barely knew him, just that he was always near Dante, always watching from the shadows. Why would you help me? He leaned in, voice low. Because I've served the Carusos for a long time, and I know what happens to people who stay too long in this. I can't trust you. You can't trust him, he said, and you already know that. That was what did it. Not the urgency in his voice, not the promise of escape, but that simple sentence, because it was true. I couldn't trust Dante. Not anymore. He led me through the back corridors of the castle, passages I didn't know existed. The air grew colder the deeper we went, the walls rougher, unfinished. There were no guards here, no cameras, no eyes, only silence. Where are we going? I asked. There's a car waiting near the edge of the property, he said. It'll take you to the city. After that, you're free. Free. The word felt fragile, almost imaginary, as if the closer I got to it, the less I believed it could be real. Still, I kept walking, because I couldn't stay. We surfaced near the garden ruins, overgrown and lifeless. Moonlight broke through the trees in pale shafts. There it was, a car idling in the shadows. Stefano opened the door for me. Go, he said. Before anyone sees. I hesitated. What about you? I'll handle Dante. He won't know it was me. I stepped into the car. The door closed behind me, and for the first time since this nightmare began, the walls didn't press in on me. I leaned my head against the window as the car pulled away, my heart pounding with a twisted mix of grief and relief. I was leaving him, leaving the man who had held me like I was the only thing that mattered, and broken me anyway.
I knew before I opened the door. The silence told me. That particular kind of silence. Not stillness, not peace. The kind that follows the sudden absence of something vital, like the moment after a heart stops. Her scent still lingered, faint traces of vanilla and soap, but the room was empty. The bed untouched since I left, the window cracked open, the closet open. No dress, no shoes, no Serena. My vision blurred. The rage came fast, too fast to stop. I grabbed the nearest chair and hurled it into the wardrobe. The crack of splintering wood echoed down the hall. I swept the contents of the vanity off with a snarl, glass and perfume crashing to the marble in an explosion of sound. Where is she? My voice ripped out of me. I stormed out of the room, blood roaring in my ears. The first maid I saw shrank against the wall as I approached. Where is she? I don't know, signor. My fist slammed into the wall beside her head. She screamed. She didn't leave on her own, I growled. Someone helped her. Who? Please, I swear, I don't know. I turned before I killed someone. Stefano. Where the fuck was Stefano? I tore through the east wing, checking cameras, barking orders at guards who fumbled to search every exit, every tunnel. If she's off the property, find out when she left, how, and with whom. No one met my eyes. No one dared, because they'd never seen me like this before, not even during execution. In my private surveillance room, I rewound footage like a man possessed. There, at 2:17 a.m., a shadow in the corridor, her shape, her walk. Next frame, Stefano, trailing behind. You bastard. You smiled to my face and stole the only thing I've ever wanted. I punched the screen. The plastic cracked. Blood smeared across my knuckles. I didn't care. I changed clothes in silence. Black shirt, shoulder holster, leather gloves. The blade I kept for close kills. Not because I planned to use it on, but because I might need it to cut through every man stupid enough to keep her from me. Outside, the storm had started. Rain soaked the stone steps as I stepped into the courtyard. Thunder rolled in the distance. My men followed. No one asked questions. They knew better, because the look in my eyes said everything. Bring her back, or don't bother coming back at all.
The rain followed me. Even inside this unfamiliar house, I heard it drumming against the roof, rattling the shutters like it wanted in. It matched the storm inside me. Loud, relentless, impossible to ignore. Stefano had brought me here, to what he called a safe house. I didn't know why he'd risk it, but I didn't care. All I knew was that I was out, away from Dante, away from his castle of gold and shadows. I should have felt relief, freedom, but all I felt was empty. The room was small, plain. A narrow bed, a chair, a table. A far cry from silk sheets and chandeliers, but I liked it better. At least here the walls didn't feel like they were watching me. Still, I couldn't stop thinking of him. His eyes when I confronted him. The silence that confirmed everything. The way his voice cracked when he said, I was 10. I pressed my hands over my ears, trying to block it out, but the memory stayed. The boy, the scar, the man, the monster. Use this if you need anything. Stefano had slipped me a phone before leaving. His eyes unreadable, his smile too thin. I shouldn't trust it. I shouldn't trust him. But the phone was in my hand now, and the need for a voice that wasn't Dante's gnawed at me like hunger. I dialed a number I hadn't in years. An old friend from the orphanage. Someone who once promised, if you ever need me, call. I didn't think he'd answer, but he did. Serena? The voice was older now, deeper, but still familiar. It cracked with shock. Is it really you? Tears blurred my vision. It's me. Where the hell are you? Everyone thought, Jesus, we thought you were dead. I swallowed hard. I can't explain. Not yet. Just tell me. Tell me about Marco. A pause, then a sigh. Relief. He's alive. He's in Brazil. He said some man forced him out of Italy. Told him if he ever came back, he'd die. But he's safe. He's alive. The room tilted. Alive. Dante hadn't killed him. He'd exiled him, threatened him, controlled him, but hadn't spilled his blood. I closed my eyes, chest tight with something I didn't know how to name. Relief. Confusion. Shame. Serena? The voice pressed. Are you okay? Where are you? I ended the call before I answered. I couldn't. Not yet. I dropped the phone onto the bed and pressed my palms against my face. Alive. And Dante. Dante had been 10. A boy. Powerless. Forced to watch his father destroy everything. Forced into silence. Into survival. I thought of his fists bloodied against stone walls. His voice raw when he said no one saved me. And it hit me like a blade. Maybe I wasn't the only one left orphaned that night. Guilt twisted in my gut. I had run. Left him behind in that golden cage of monsters. He hadn't just grown into a man shaped by violence. He'd been forged in it, burned by it, while I escaped into the anonymity of orphanages and temporary jobs. He stayed with the devil, and the devil made him in his image. How could I hate him for what he'd become, when I'd abandoned the boy he once was? My hands shook, my chest ached. I whispered to the silence. He was only a child. The rain outside beat harder, as if it wanted me to understand. I curled onto the bed, but sleep never came. Only the thought of him, broken and furious, tearing the world apart, looking for me. And a truth I didn't want to admit. I wasn't afraid of him finding me. I was afraid of what I'd do when he did.
The storm hadn't stopped. Neither had I. 3 days. That's how long it took to find her. 3 days of tearing through every alley, every safe house, every whispered lead in the city until the trail led me to her. The door splintered beneath my boot. The guards outside never stood a chance. My men held them back while I moved inside, heart pounding with something darker than rage, heavier than relief. And there she was, sitting on a narrow bed, phone still clutched in her hand, eyes wide with shock. For a moment, I just stared. My lungs forgot how to work. She was alive, safe, real. Then the fury came roaring back. You ran. The words scraped out of me like gravel. She rose slowly, chin high despite the tremor in her hands. What else was I supposed to do, Dante? Stay in your cage? Pretend none of it mattered? My jaw locked. You think you can vanish from me? You think you can disappear and I won't burn the world down to find you? I know you will. Her voice cracked, but her eyes didn't. And that's exactly why I had to go. I crossed the room in 2 strides, grabbed her wrist, and yanked her closer. You belong with me, she gasped, defiance flaring in her gaze. I don't belong to anyone. Her words cut deeper than a blade, but my grip only tightened. My chest pressed against hers, breaths colliding in the storm between us. You have no idea what I've become without you, I whispered, voice shaking. No idea what I'll do if you leave me again. Then tell me, she snapped. Tell me what you are, Dante. A savior? A jailer? A child who watched my father die? Or the man who kissed me like I was the only thing left in this world? Her words gutted me, my vision blurred with rage, with longing, with something so twisted I couldn't name it. So, I kissed her. This wasn't the restrained touch in the hallway. This wasn't a claim at a dinner table. This was war. Our mouths crashed together, violent and desperate. She fought me at first, fists against my chest, nails digging into my skin. But then she broke, pulling me closer, kissing me back with the same fury that burned through me. I lifted her, slammed her against the wall, her legs wrapping around my waist, her hoodie bunched between my fingers, soft fabric tearing under the force of my grip. Her lips tasted like tears, like fire, like the only salvation I'd ever know. She bit me hard enough to draw blood. I groaned into her mouth, half pain, half ecstasy. Say it, I demanded between kisses. Say you're mine, she gasped, head tipping back as my lips traced her throat. You don't own me, I smiled against her skin. Then why do you keep coming back to me? Her nails raked down my neck. Because I hate you. Then hate me louder. The world dissolved. There was no storm outside. No enemies. No betrayal. Only the sound of her breath. The thud of my heart. The heat of her body under mine. We fell to the bed in a tangle. Her hands pulling, pushing, daring me closer. Every touch was war and surrender at once. Every kiss a promise and a curse. She wasn't forgiving me. I wasn't redeeming myself. But in that moment, none of it mattered. Because she let me have her. Because she took me in return. Because we were both too broken to stop. When it ended, silence fell heavy between us. She lay beside me, chest heaving, lips swollen. I stared at the ceiling, blood still on my mouth, hands still trembling. I should have felt triumphant. I should have felt whole. But all I felt was fear. Because I knew, if she ever left me again, I wouldn't survive it. And if I had to chain the world to keep her, I would.
The storm had quieted by morning, but inside me, the chaos still raged. Dante hadn't spoken after last night. Not a word. Not a promise. Not even the threat I half expected. He'd just lay there, chest heaving, eyes fixed on the ceiling, like if he looked at me again, he'd shatter into pieces. And maybe I would too. So when the knock came hours later, I was grateful for the distraction, but I should have known better. She entered like the castle belonged to her. Francesca. Her red lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes, her heels clicking against the marble like the sound of a clock counting down. I hope I'm not intruding, she purred, voice honeyed poison. I stood squaring my shoulders. What do you want? To talk, she said, drifting to the window. Her gaze slid over me with disdain. You've made quite the impression. A girl from nowhere, sitting in the center of Dante Caruso's empire. It's amusing. I crossed my arms. Amusing isn't the word I'd use. No? She tilted her head. Then maybe tragic. She moved closer, eyes sharp. You think he loves you? That you're special? You're not. You're a distraction, a weakness. And Dante, she smiled darkly. Dante doesn't love. He consumes. He takes. He destroys. Just like his father before him. The words hit hard. My breath caught, but I held my ground. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, but I do, she said, circling me slowly like a predator. I've been in his bed. I've heard his promises. I've seen the way he uses people until there's nothing left. He will never love you, Serena. He isn't capable. I clenched my fists. Her words sliced, but they didn't bleed me. Not this time. Because I remembered his eyes last night. Wild, desperate, terrified. A man torn apart by what he felt, not a man empty of it. You're wrong, I said quietly. Francesca laughed. Wrong? Darling, look around you. Do you see freedom here? Do you see choice? You're his prisoner. And when he tires of you, you'll be discarded, just like the rest. I stepped forward, close enough that her perfume stung my nose. Maybe I am his prisoner. Maybe he has broken me in ways I don't even understand yet. But you, I smiled faintly, cold. You're not even that. You're nothing to him anymore. Her face faltered, just for a second. You think you've won, she hissed. This isn't a game I asked to play, I said. But if it is, then yes, he chose me, not you. Her eyes narrowed, and she reached out, as if to brush my cheek in mock sympathy. I caught her wrist midair. Her smile vanished. Don't touch me, I said, voice steady, and don't come here again. I let her go, and she staggered back, fury flashing across her perfect face. This will end, she whispered, and when it does, you'll wish you'd listened. She turned and swept from the room, heels clicking like gunshots. The silence that followed was heavy, but for the first time since I'd woken in this castle, I felt something strange. Strength. Not because I trusted Dante, not because I forgave him, but because Francesca's venom hadn't broken me. And if she couldn't, maybe no one could.
The air tasted wrong. I felt it before the first shot rang out. An itch in my blood, a stillness too sharp to be natural. By the time the echo of gunfire reached the great hall, I was already moving. The war had come to my doorstep. Men shouted across the courtyard. The clash of steel and the crack of rifles split the night. Glass shattered. Smoke bled through the windows, acrid and bitter. Get Serena to the inner chamber, I barked to one of my guards, shoving a weapon into his hand. No one touches her. No one. I didn't wait for confirmation. I trusted no one but myself. I stormed into the courtyard, pistol raised. Flames licked the edges of the old stone walls, throwing twisted shadows across the men fighting below. My men against theirs. Caruso against everyone who wanted me gone. I fired. One shot, clean through a rival's chest. Another. Blood spilled on the cobblestones, black under the torchlight. But even as I fought, my eyes searched. Not for the enemy, for betrayal. Because it stank in the air thicker than the smoke. And then I saw him. Stefano, not fighting for me, not standing with my men. He was behind the gates, speaking to the ones who wanted me dead. Hand gestures, sharp and commanding. His voice carried above the chaos. Rage consumed me. Stefano! He turned, and for the first time in all the years I'd known him, he didn't mask it. He didn't fake loyalty. He smiled, the kind of smile that said finally. I broke through the crowd like a wolf through sheep. Every bullet I fired fueled by the sight of his treachery. Bodies fell. Screams cut short. My men faltered at the sudden violence, not knowing who to trust. Stefano slipped into the shadows, retreating back inside the castle. A coward's move, a snake's move. I chased him, boots pounding the marble halls slick with blood. The east wing shook from the blast of a grenade outside. Dust rained from the ceiling. Paintings of dead ancestors crashed to the ground. My fists clenched around the grip of my gun until my knuckles screamed. I would kill him with my hands if I had to. Not because of his betrayal of me. I could live with knives in my back. I'd been raised among them. But because of her. Because if Stefano had turned, if he'd led them here, then Serena was in his sights. And that, I could never forgive. I kicked open door after door, the roar of battle behind me. Stefano! I shouted, voice echoing like a curse. Come face me, you coward! Nothing, only silence. Then, footsteps ahead, quick, deliberate. He was running toward the west wing, toward her. The fury in my chest nearly blinded me. I ran harder, faster, pushing past the ache in my body, the burn in my lungs. He thought he could take her, use her, break her, but he didn't understand. I would burn this castle, this city, this world to ash before I let anyone take Serena from me.
The castle burned around me. Flames climbed the walls like hungry hands. The air stank of smoke and iron. Men screamed, rifles cracked, boots pounded across marble floors slick with blood. And through it all, Stefano's grip on my arm, iron and cruel. He dragged me down the hallway, ignoring the chaos outside. I fought him, nails digging into his wrist, but his hold only tightened. Let me go! I spat, voice raw. He leaned close, his breath hot against my ear. Oh no, Bella. You're exactly where I want you. He forced me into the great hall, the same one where Dante had once paraded me before his enemies like a prize. Now it was unrecognizable. Smoke blackened the ceiling. Firelight flickered against broken glass and shattered chandeliers. Stefano shoved me forward until I stumbled, falling to my knees. Stand, he ordered. I did, because I refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing me beg. His eyes raked over me, not with desire, but with hunger for power. You're the key, Serena. You're what makes Dante weak. With you in my hands, he'll break. And when he breaks, I'll take everything. My chest heaved. You don't know him. Oh, I know him better than you ever will. Stefano's smile was sharp. You think he loves you? No, he needs you. And need is just another word for weakness. When he sees me with you, gun at your head, he'll crumble. And then, the throne will be mine. The heavy doors burst open. Dante stood there, gun in hand, blood on his shirt, eyes blazing like hell itself. Stefano. His voice was a growl, low and lethal. Stefano yanked me against his chest, pressing cold steel under my chin. One more step, Dante, and I paint these walls with her blood. I felt the barrel tremble against my throat. My pulse thundered. Dante froze. His hands shook, but his eyes never left mine. Let her go, he said. No, Stefano sneered. Drop the gun, or she dies. For the first time, I saw fear in Dante. Real fear. His finger twitched on the trigger, but he didn't fire. He couldn't. Because of me. Because Stefano was right. I was his weakness, and I hated it, so I stopped being weak. I let my body sag suddenly, dead weight in Stefano's arms. He cursed, jerking to hold me upright. In that split second, I tilted my head, opened my mouth, and sank my teeth into his hand. He shouted, the gun loosening. I drove my elbow back into his ribs and twisted free, stumbling forward. Now! I screamed. Dante moved like lightning. One shot, straight through Stefano's chest. The traitor staggered, blood blooming on his shirt, shock written across his face. His gun clattered to the marble. He fell to his knees, choking, eyes wide. She made you weak, he rasped. No, Dante said, stepping forward, gun steady. His eyes flicked to me, just for a moment, before returning to the dying man. She made me strong enough to kill you. The second shot ended it. Stefano collapsed, lifeless. The silence that followed was deafening. I stood there shaking, smoke curling around us, the taste of blood still sharp in my mouth. Dante lowered the gun, his chest heaving, his hands trembling now that it was over. He turned to me. For the first time, he looked fragile, broken. Serena, he whispered, crossing the space between us. And God help me, I didn't run. I let him pull me into his arms, blood and sweat and smoke clinging to us both. His grip was crushing, desperate, like he couldn't believe I was still here. You saved me, he murmured into my hair. No, I said, breathless, pressing my forehead against his chest. We saved each other.
The fire was everywhere. It climbed the velvet drapes, devoured the portraits of long-dead Carusos, licked the bones of the castle that caged me my whole life. Smoke choked the air, thick and bitter, but I welcomed it. Let the place burn. Let the ghosts scream as the walls came down around them. I stood in the great hall, gun heavy and Serena at my side. Her fingers curled around mine, trembling, but she didn't let go. Not even now. Not even after everything. The last of the intruders had fled or bled. My men dragged bodies from the stairwell, their boots splashing through rivers of ash and blood. Some bowed their heads to me, waiting for orders. But I had nothing to give, because for the first time in my life, I didn't want to be their leader. I just wanted to be hers. The heavy doors groaned open one last time, and there he was. My father. The old man leaned on a cane, but his presence was still iron. His eyes burned through the haze, cold and sharp, as if the flames had no right to touch him. You disappoint me, he said. His voice was steady, untouched by the chaos. All this, and for what? A girl. Serena stiffened, but I squeezed her hand. She's not just a girl, I said. His laugh was hollow. She's a Valente. Her blood is a curse on ours. I killed her father, and you dare to love his daughter. I don't dare, I growled. I do. He took a step forward. You were supposed to be my legacy, my heir, and now you burn the empire for her? I raised my gun. I'm not your heir. Not anymore. You think you can escape who you are? His eyes narrowed. You're me, Dante. You always will be. No. My voice shook, but I didn't lower the gun. I've been your prisoner my whole life, just like she was. But I choose her, not you, not this. The old man sneered. Then you choose weakness. His hand slipped into his coat, pulling out the cold gleam of steel. But I was faster. One shot, straight through his chest. His eyes widened, more in fury than pain. He staggered, blood soaking into his shirt, cane clattering to the floor. You'll regret this, he rasped, voice fading. She'll destroy you. I stepped forward, gun still raised. No, she'll save me. And with that, my father, the monster who made me, fell to the floor, lifeless. The hall shuddered as part of the ceiling collapsed, sparks showering over us. My men shouted, scattering, dragging the wounded away. I turned to Serena. Her face was streaked with soot, her eyes wide, shining with tears she wouldn't let fall. I dropped the gun, It hit the marble with a clang that echoed louder than the fire. "It's over," I told her. Her lips trembled. "Is it?" I cupped her face in my hands, ignoring the blood and ash. "Yes, because I'm done. No throne, no legacy, no crown of iron." Her breath caught. "And what do you want instead?" I pressed my forehead to hers, closing my eyes. "You." The roof groaned above us, timbers snapping. The castle, the prison of my childhood, the monument to blood, was dying. I grabbed her hand and pulled. We ran through the burning corridor, past falling beams and shattered glass, until the night air hit our faces like salvation. Behind us, the Caruso fortress crumbled into the fire. Ahead of us, nothing but darkness. And for the first time in my life, darkness didn't terrify me, because she was in it with me.
The world was quiet again. No gunshots, no orders barked through corridors, no whispers of blood or betrayal under chandeliers, just the sound of waves, and him. We found a place where no one knew our names, a coastal village with crumbling villas and lemon trees clinging to sunburned cliffs. The house we stayed in was old, whitewashed, with blue shutters that opened to the sea. For the first time since I could remember, I woke to sunlight, not to locks clicking shut or walls breathing secrets. And I woke in his arms. Dante slept with one arm thrown over my waist, his chest rising slow and steady behind me. His breath stirred my hair, and when he exhaled against my neck, it wasn't a warning. It was peace. I turned to face him. His eyes were already open, watching me. "Can't sleep?" I asked softly. His voice was rough with mourning. "Didn't want to miss a second of you." I rolled my eyes, smiling. "That's a terrible line." He didn't smile back. Just reached up, fingers brushing my jaw like I might disappear. "You're real. Every day I wake up and expect this to be a fucking dream. I'm here," I whispered. "I chose this. I chose you." Later, the sheets tangled around our legs, the shutters half closed to keep out the heat. We didn't rush. This wasn't like before. Wasn't war disguised as need, or pain masked by lust. This time, it was slow, deliberate. He touched me like I was something sacred. Like I wasn't just a woman in his arms, but a memory finally made flesh. His mouth traced every inch of me, reverent and unhurried. When I reached for him, he stilled my hands, eyes locked on mine. "Let me give," he murmured. "Let me worship." And I did. There was no crown on his head now, no empire, no blood between us, just skin and heat, and a kind of love that had survived fire. I whispered his name like a prayer. He said mine like a vow. And when he moved inside me, it was different. Less like claiming and more like coming home. He didn't look away, didn't flinch when I touched the scars on his shoulders, didn't hide the way he trembled when I came undone beneath him. He kissed the inside of my wrist, my collarbone, my lips, and when we finally collapsed together, hearts pounding in sync, I buried my face in his neck and said what I hadn't dared before. "I love you." His arms tightened. He didn't answer with words. He didn't need to, because when his lips met mine again, I felt it. And this time, there was no war in it, only surrender.
The sun was setting over the garden when I saw her, barefoot, laughing, her dress caught on the breeze like a second skin. Our son chased her, wild curls bouncing, his little legs moving too fast for his balance. She caught him before he fell, scooped him up with that effortless grace only she had. Our daughter toddled behind, determined not to be left out. And Serena, she was still the most dangerous thing I'd ever touched, the only thing I'd ever wanted. I watched from the terrace, a glass of wine untouched in my hand. I'd faced men with knives, taken bullets, built empires, and buried traitors with my bare hands, but nothing terrified me like the way I still wanted her. Not just needed, wanted. After all these years, after fire and war and everything we lost and clawed back, she was still it, the center, the reason. She looked up and saw me. That smile, God, that smile, still had the power to bring me to my knee. She handed the boy to the nanny and walked toward me slowly, hips swaying in a way that made my mouth go dry. When she reached me, she didn't speak, just slid into my lap like she belonged there, like nothing in the world could ever keep her. "You've been staring," she murmured, fingers slipping in. "Hard not to," I said, kissing the inside of her wrist. "You gave me a life I never deserved." She looked at me with those silver blue eyes and tilted her head. "You gave me back to myself." I carried her inside, locked the doors, laid her down on our bed. The years had only deepened it, the way her skin responded to my touch, the way her body knew mine and mine, hers. She arched beneath me, her moan low and full of memory. Her legs wrapped around me like she'd never learned to let go, and I kissed her like it was still the first time, like she might slip away again if I didn't hold her. "I still dream of you," I whispered against her throat. "Every night." Her breath caught. "Then make me real again." And I did. Slow, deep, endless. We moved like the sea, unrushed, unstoppable, ancient. When she cried out my name, I lost what little control I had left. And when we collapsed, tangled and breathless, I whispered in her ear, "You're still mine." She smiled against my chest. Always. Even if the world burned again, even if the ghosts came crawling back, even if I had to kill and build and burn all over, I'd do it. For her. Because she wasn't just my obsession, she was my peace, my future, my fucking religion, and I would worship her till my last breath. Thank you for making it to the end. If these words found you, if this story stirred something inside you, even for a moment, then every line was worth writing. Your presence here isn't just a number, it's a quiet echo in the noise. A heart that felt something alongside mine. Each time you leave a like, a comment, or share this dark and tender world with someone else, you give me a reason to keep going, to keep writing with fingers on fire and a heart wide open. If you haven't yet, subscribe. It's free, but to me, it means everything. And if you can, share this story. Because the world is already full of noise, of wounds, of wars. Maybe a story like this can be a soft place to land, for someone who needs it most. Thank you for reading, for feeling, for being here. In this place, you are always, always welcome.